if you want financial advice. So I would say, the apps, it's not time for apps yet. Apps are still like regular consumer apps are still 3 to 4 years out.
Cryptocurrency exchange.
All right, everyone. So today we have Ganesh Swami from Covalent calling all the way from the other side of the world. And Ganesh is the CEO and co-founder of Covalent. It's a blockchain analytics startup which basically makes blockchain data more accessible to the general public. Essentially, their API pulls data from all the different blockchains, puts them all on a unified database, and presents them in an easily digestible way for consumption. So, Ganesh, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, super happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
So, let's get down to the details. What gaps you saw in the market, and what brought you to start Covalent?
So I've been in the data space for about a decade, and I started my career as a physicist building cancer drugs, and it's all data. My entire career has been data focused. About a decade ago, I pivoted my career to the database space because just the pharmaceutical space was really moving really slow. Typically, projects in the pharma space take about a decade to go to an MVP status, while my friends were starting companies and getting funding and going through M&A transactions in less than 2 years. So I felt my life was slipping away. So over the past decade, I've been doing all kinds of data systems. And one fine rainy day, so Vancouver, which is where home is, it rains a lot. So on a weekend, it was raining, there was nowhere to go. I decided to go to a database hackathon just for fun. So I went to this database hackathon and ended up building essentially a connector where you can pull blockchain transactions from Excel just for fun, and ended up winning that hackathon, and then decided to start a company to commercialize this technology. So that's like the genesis story of Covalent. This was in 2017, late 2017, so November 2017, just at the tail end of the previous bull market. So our timing was very unfortunate. There was no way to raise funds or anything of that nature. But to be frank, there was no gap in the market. For 2 years, there was actually no market. And so it was quite a struggle during that first 2 years. And there were no customers, no revenue, no traction, nothing at all. But what me and my co-founder did is we bootstrapped this company, built excellent tech. We're able to refine our technology. And then when the market actually became mature, right time, right place, right team. So it's like an overnight success. So from 2020, it's been nonstop, day in and day out. Now the team is about 60 people, mostly based here in Vancouver. And we have thousands of customers. We index like 40 plus blockchains, and we are now one of the market leaders. But our beginning was just a rainy afternoon, just at a hackathon, and years of struggle. So nothing majorly. It's not like a major insight or anything that that sparked the company start. It's just plain old-fashioned. Let's build something that's useful, and which we had the conviction would make sense. And when the market was right, boom, we were ready to go.
Wow! So it's just plain old-fashioned hard work in a sense. And was that hackathon your first foray into crypto and blockchain, or did you touch it? It
was. So in the database space, we're used to thousands of transactions per second. So I've been looking at the blockchain space. I guess like from 2012, 2013, when when Bitcoin came on the scene, I was aware of the Ethereum ICO, but I didn't really participate in it. I thought these things were a joke because 15 transactions per second is like, who cares, right? Yeah. I didn't really understand the point, and that's because I didn't understand and appreciate the ethos of crypto networks and the ownership economy. And it actually took me, quite frankly, a couple of years, even after starting Covalent, right? Even the first year of Covalent, I would say I was here for the tech, right? I wasn't really here for the political or the economic revolution that blockchains would evolve to. And that took me a couple of years of understanding, reading white papers, really believing in the ethos of crypto. So it took me a couple of years, and once I became a believer, there was no turning back. And my conviction, everything just grew 100x, and there's no going back from here now. I'm deep in the rabbit hole.
Would you say if you actually bought ETH back when you first found it, that you wouldn't? What would you be doing right now if you actually bought ETH at that time when you found it?
I mean, I would still be building Covalent, right? right now, I'm a very active angel investor. I've invested in over 40 companies, and I would say more than half of those companies have done really well. But I'm not a trader. I'm not really excited by money making more money, right? I'm here to build tech, solve real problems, and build something iconic that the entire crypto space uses. So that's where that's something that I can do with my skills and my conviction that money cannot do, right? You can money doesn't go that far. Like having a product out there and with the world uses directly or indirectly is for me, that's a bigger win than the zeros in my bank, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's a really admirable goal. And for Covalent, I would assume it's mostly B2B instead of B2C, right?
We are a B2B, yes, but our route to the business is through a hackathon developer. So the way we run 5 hackathons a month, so very active. So hackathons continue to be our mainstay because that's our founding story, and you can see the next $1 billion companies start from these hackathons, right? And so here, most of these guys who are playing with crypto on their weekends and at the hackathons, just a hobby, either are looking to move into Web3 or work at a traditional Web3 company. And so they are just playing and tinkering with the stuff which they don't have time to play with during work. And then it just, builds that mind share. And so eventually when the timing is right, they take Covalent with them to their next job or their next project. So I would say the B2C is more like a consumer style kind of like marketing and go to market, but then that rolls up to a B2B kind of like system.
Speaking of I want to know more about like what kind of customers use Covalent. So from the top of my head, I would think something like DeFi Llama or Dune Analytics. Those kind of platforms, they're database platforms. So what kind of users like use your platforms? What kind of companies use your platforms?
Our primary audience is developers, right? So it's an API. So there's no UI, there's no buttons to click at. It's not like Zapper or it's not like Zerion where you can see your portfolio. It's an API and the responses are in JSON. So it's meant for developers. So here, the projects that integrated with Covalent, there's probably like 4,000 projects today live on Covalent. So it's quite big in terms of its footprint. So here, all kinds of examples, like the next Samsung TVs are all powered by Covalent's APIs. So all the NFTs you see on the Samsung, it's all Covalent, right? So they're pulling all the data out. If you use Ledger, if you use Zerion, the data, if you use DeFi Llama, if you use, I think the portions of CoinGecko, all kinds of use cases. So primarily, the use cases are bucketed into wallet applications where you want to see your assets per address, or NFT galleries where you want to browse your collections and compute floor prices and things of that nature. And then taxation tools where you want historical granular transaction data. And then the long tail of use cases. So there's like lots of yet to be explored use cases like DAO tooling and wallet to wallet messaging. So anyone who needs data, Covalent's APIs provide for that.
Wow, so essentially you guys really just cover just raw data and basically every aspect of just every aspect of crypto, right? The whole industry. So you mentioned NFTs.
On chain only. We don't do market data. So we are, in a way, we are an indexed bet on all of crypto. So in 2020, as the market started to heat up, we were the best DeFi API. In 2021, we were the best NFT API. In 2022, earlier this year, we were the best GameFi API. And then the DAO tooling API, it doesn't matter, right? Whatever the use case is, I think like stable coins are going to be huge, right? As a use case. GameFi is, I think we are yet to see the GameFi explosion. The number of AA and AAA studios that are coming to the market is pretty impressive. So we'll be the standard go-to-market API for those use cases. I think NFTs have a life beyond the face profile pictures and these JPEGs. So there's a lot of use cases. Yeah, the list goes on. It doesn't matter what the emerging use case is. As long as there's data on the blockchain, Covalent will get it for you.
Wow, that's really cool. And you mentioned GameFi just now as maybe it might boom up in the future. And I think you also spoke about that at the Korean Blockchain Week as well, right? So I think you mentioned that the next wave of adoption will be championed by AAA Game Studios instead of startup blockchain companies. What's the rationale for that?
So it's very interesting. So there's two ways this can play out, and I hope both areas play out. And I don't think one cannibalizes the other, right? I think the more, the merrier. So if you look at something like DeFi Kingdoms, which is the biggest blockchain native game, it only has 5,000 players. 5,000 players, that's it, right? And if a kid releases an app on the App Store, on day one, they get 100,000 downloads. So this is still a drop in the bucket because of all the UX problems. But we talked to a lot of AAA and AA studios, and they all have 10, 15, 20 million monthly active users. So for them to add a crypto experience is a stepwise increase in the total adoption of crypto, right? So those players don't even know they have a crypto backend. So my bet is on these Web2 companies starting to integrate Web3 technologies rather than Web3 companies themselves growing up in a time. Over the long term, definitely the crypto native use cases are going to explode, right? If you look initially, the major use cases of the internet in the late 90s were Web 1 or, real life services that were moved to the internet. That's all it was, right? And then eventually, 10, 15 years later, you had internet native applications like Airbnb and Facebook. Those things were not possible. Even Uber is enabled by internet networks. It's not really possible in another system. So I think it'll still take a couple of iterations for crypto native use cases to explode. Right now, all of the use cases on crypto, most of the use cases, I shouldn't say all use cases, most use cases of crypto is just taking a fintech or a traditional finance application or social media like Twitter and then decentralizing it. So it's not super novel in its consumer use case, right? The technology is pretty novel, no question about that. So the question is about adoption. And my bet in the next 2 years is Web2 adopting Web3.
And you mentioned DeFi Kingdoms just now. Well, were you actively playing it, or you just stood outside and just watch how the whole thing played out?
So we're a believer in this space, right? So we're not the project that sits on the sidelines and laughs at projects because of various issues, right? So DeFi Kingdoms, we're very tight with the team. We're actually going to be indexing their next subnet. We wrote the most comprehensive GameFi book earlier this year. We wrote an 80-page book on how to understand Web3 gaming. So their DeFi Kingdoms and Krabada was actively analyzed for all of their metrics, reach, retention, and revenue metrics that is relevant to a Web2 kind of gaming studio. Because these Web2 studios that are adding Web3 experiences are comparing, mobile platform, Xbox, PlayStation, console-like platform to Web3 gaming. So for them, cost of retention, cost of customer acquisition, those kinds of metrics really, really matter. So this is a lens into what is happening with these benchmarks. And if you look at Axie Infinity, for example, the retention numbers were through the roof, beyond anything I've seen in this space. When I pivoted from pharmaceuticals, I started as a gaming analyst. So I know the benchmarks in the traditional space, and some of these Web3 gaming games are incredible, right? So that's what's happening there. And so we're a believer in the space. So we will be indexing the next DeFi Kingdoms. And they're just moved to a new Avalanche subnet. So we'll be the default data provider for that platform.
Oh, and I think for DeFi Kingdoms, I think recently they said they were gonna move on from Harmony to Clayton, right? Is it hard for you guys to index?
So
was it hard?
They're taking a multi-chain approach, right? DeFi Kingdoms, there's no loss for them to move multi-chain. More users, the better the economy is. And so I know they're doing some settlement on definitely on Avalanche subnet. So the DeFi Kingdoms is a subnet. They're also on Harmony and they're also on Clayton, and we index all of those chains. So Covalent is the only provider that is able to give you a holistic view of the player economy.
Oh, that's really interesting. And I think aside from DeFi Kingdoms and Krabada, are you guys looking at any other games, any up and coming games at the moment?
I'm not a gamer myself, so I can't speak too much to it. But our research team, for research purposes, they play all these games. So I can't really ask any questions when I see them playing games at like 10 a.m. in the on a day.
Research purposes.
But but we're very bullish on the gaming ecosystem. I think these app chains are really exciting for games.
Okay, I think we spoke about DFK, Crobata, and I think within the past few years, I was playing XC, DFK, Crobata as well. And I think one problem which I saw, which I think almost most of us saw, was that all these games, they're not really fun. Like they haven't reached a stage where like the general public will see them as fun games and actually play those games. So most of the user base, I think they were just in it to maybe farm tokens, mainly for financial gain. So how long do you think we will have to wait before we see an actual fun blockchain game?
I would say 6 months. And that goes back to my thesis that Web2 games coming to Web3 will be better Web3 games than Web3 games. So the Web3 native games, you don't see a lot of hardcore game designers building a Web3 native game. They don't even understand a lot of the technical complexities of Web3 systems. So Web2 games, existing Web2 games, you don't even have to build something brand new. But if you add a crypto element to the backend, I'll give you an example. In the fintech space, Wealth Simple is an example of a robo-advisor, one of the biggest in Canada. And their focus is mostly on millennials. And millennials, they want to collect NFTs, collectibles, right? So along with their stocks, they also want to see crypto assets. And so they have integrated Covalent to show them that view. So that's a Web2 experience for a Web3 audience. So that's incredible. So imagine the same kind of thing happening within Gears of War, right? Or any Xbox game, or it doesn't matter. And some of the assets are on the blockchain, and it matches up with all of the NFT drops done by these big brands. Like for example, Warner Brothers Consensus and Palm have a joint venture called the Palm blockchain, and all the Batman assets and the IP is on that chain. So they're building a Batman game. Those NFTs, which are within the Batman game, are settled on the Palm blockchain. And hopefully that is through Covalent's API. So it's a no-brainer. I mean, you just have to connect the dots, right? So that goes back to my belief that Web2 games is going to explode the use cases here. Not really Web3. It would be nice if Web3 games, grow up to be fun. But I think the first story is more credible, to be honest.
Well, you guys are really everywhere. So you mentioned Palm blockchain and DC with DC as well. So I was in that as well when they first launched. So I was on the whitelist, and you guys are really everywhere. And speaking of NFTs, are you investing in NFTs or personally, or do you just are you just mainly do you just work fully on Covalent?
No, I'm not an art collector or things like that. I wear a black T-shirt every day, so I'm not really into the collection piece. So I can't speak much about that. And I collect POAPs though. I love POAPs. So those are kind of NFTs. And what I'm actually bullish on is this. Definitely the digital native art is a crazy use case. Very compelling. For the first time, people who are digitally native. I'm not talking about people who are thinking about analog services. I'm talking about like digitally native art has a platform to transfer and to represent themselves, right? So that's pretty exciting. I'm not part of that cohort, so I don't fully understand this. I'm not going to claim I even understand that. But if you look at the B2B world, I think there is a future here, I would say in the next 5 years, where all business processes are issued as NFTs. So for example, your invoices, your accounts receivable, accounts payable, if those are NFTs, now you can collateralize them. Now you can pool them together. You can create, all kinds of really interesting financial instruments, all verifiably provable on the blockchain, which is incredible. So you can settle invoices that way. You can do all kinds of things. And, every invoice is pretty unique. The line items are unique. The invoice number is unique. But currently what we have is a digital copy, a PDF of an analog process. That's why invoices are all not cryptographically secure. They're all like serial numbers, right? They're sequential numbers, that is invoices. So it's still an analog process. But once that moves to the blockchain, yeah, the NFTs as an infrastructure piece will just explode. So that is what I'm bullish on. I think that's about a couple of years out.
Would you still say that we're still all early in the space?
Yeah, I would say I'll give you some numbers to put this in the context, right? So Covalent is a developer platform, and on GitHub, there's 30 million developers in the world, right? So they have 30 million accounts. So GitHub is probably the number one developer platform out there. The blockchain space has about 300,000 developers. So something like Infura has 300,000 accounts. So that's 1% penetration. Covalent has about 35,000 developers on the platform today. So that's 0.1%. So in our mission to make blockchain data accessible through these universal APIs, we are 0.1% towards our mission. So are we early? Yeah, we are definitely early. In our mission, we are just about to put our shoes and head to the front door to go on our mission. So we haven't even gotten started, to be honest.
Oh, that's really exciting to hear. So what tokens or projects are you currently invested in or bullish on at the moment? I mean, we're in a bear market, but I want to know what are you still holding in your bags?
Yeah, so I'm a straight up infrastructure guy, right? So I don't really understand financial products or any kind of like advanced. So options protocols, I just don't, or derivatives, I just don't get it, and I don't even care so much. So on the infra side, I'm a believer in all the layer ones. So I hold ETH, of course. I hit Bitcoin. I hold Polygon, Avalanche, Phantom, all the other layer twos. So ZK Sync, it doesn't have a token yet, but I'm also an investor in a lot of pre-market projects, mostly in the infrastructure space. So these are layer ones, like Neon Labs is an EVM chain on Solana. So that's releasing later this year, and Covalent will be indexing that. Aurora, excellent project. They're an EVM chain on Near protocol. So that's super exciting. Evmos is EVM on Kronos. Sorry, EVS on Cosmos. Kronos is also EVM on Cosmos. Moonbeam. Moonbeam is EVM on Polkadot. So very bullish on all those settlement layers. Comes from my experience in the space. In the database space, there's over 800 databases. Literally, there's a site, dbdb.io. If you go there, there's 800 databases. So the world is diverse. You can never have one size fits all. So therefore, blockchains are the same. You can never. It's not going to be all Ethereum or all Polygon. It doesn't make sense. You need a spectrum of solutions. You need a cascade of security options for developers and for settlement, right? So that's the world is diverse. So I'm very bullish on all these settlement layers, right? And these teams are not just have a dead white paper and then disappear, right? These teams are very aggressive in their roadmaps. They're building and building and building. It doesn't matter bull market or bear market. The second kind of like project I'm very fascinated with is bridges. So here, Axelar, I would say, Nomad is an example. Even though recently Nomad got hacked, and Covalent was one of the biggest tokens that got stolen from Nomad. So about $12 million. Yeah. So it's pretty bad for our community, but I'm still bullish on the teams that have built that. It was very unfortunate, and our community lost a lot of funds. So the bridges are very, very exciting. Beyond that, I like zero knowledge rollups, zero knowledge like proof systems. So it's all mostly infrastructure projects that I'm very bullish on. And quite frankly, if you want financial advice, I think the application layer is not here. So what applications do is they break the infrastructure, and then the infrastructure levels up to handle the next wave of applications. So imagine all the ICO projects, all those applications, they broke the blockchain, they broke the financial infrastructure, and that's why you now have stablecoins. That's why now you have indexers. These things didn't exist the previous thing. So the apps will disappear in the next 6 months to a year, but we know what apps broke the infrastructure the last cycle, and then the infrastructure will level up, and there'll be a next generation of apps. So I would say, the apps, it's not time for apps yet. Apps are still like regular consumer apps are still 3 to 4 years out. That's my opinion.
Yeah, so I guess it's just a matter of time, and yeah, builders are building. So I guess you guys are really when it comes to the bear market. I mean, normal investors we're all super sad, and then if you look at all the group chats, everyone's really quiet. So I guess for builders specifically, nothing much has changed, right?
Yeah, I think for builders, my only advice is keep your head down and continue building. Like Covalent, the reason for our success now is because of the code that we wrote during the previous bear market. So our business is dramatically expanding now, right? Covalent as a project, as an ecosystem, is dramatically expanding. So we're indexing more chains in the bear market than in the bull market. So there's no noise in the ecosystem. So I would say if you're a builder, be heads down, build. It's actually a blessing. Think of it as a gift. These kinds of opportunities don't come that often where no one is bothering you. Retail is not coming to your Telegram and asking you when token. So none of that is happening. Scams are not there. So it's actually a gift. So take advantage of the gift. Only make sure that you have about 2 years of runway, because it may be very painful for the next 2 years. I don't know. Nobody knows. Maybe we're heading into a recession. I would say go raise 2 years of capital, keep your burn low, and then when the next cycle comes, man, it's your time. So that's my only advice.
Yeah, and for what about Web2 developers who want to get in the space? What sort of advice would you give them?
So I think if you're starting, it really depends on where you are in your life. If you're younger, I would say go take some risks, go join some DeFi project. There are lots of excellent DeFi projects. There have been projects that have raised a lot of money in Q1 and Q2 of this year. So just go look at, the Block Crypto or any news publication. There's been a lot of funding over the past couple of months. So go join one of those projects. So, take some risks. If you're a little more commitments, like you have other commitments in life, then probably go join one of the bigger companies in the space. So, I would say like Coinbase, Binance, the exchanges are very, very solid businesses. I would say custodians are very, very solid. Even companies like Covalent, like we're an older project. Most of the team is older. We don't really grind like 24/7. We're more like stable kind of like role. So that's what I would recommend. And you have to do your due diligence, right? The scams are abundant in this space. Yeah. So go investigate what the team is up to, read their white paper, engage with their product if they have a product, and generally you should join a team that you're passionate about the space, passionate about the product. So if it's an NFT project, go join an NFT infrastructure or something. If you're into like consumer apps, there's lots of consumer infrastructure apps coming up. If you're into data, Covalent is a great option. So yeah, just pick there's lots of options now. It's not like 2018 where you only had maybe 50 companies, right? Now there's at least 5,000 companies in this space.
Yeah, that's really, really great advice. And moving a little bit off tangent now, what was your most degen story in crypto?
It's not in crypto, actually. So, man, this is a crazy story. So we bootstrapped company Covalent for the first couple of years. So we had no money, and the founders would put their money. So we didn't go to any conferences. We had no money, nothing at all, right? In 2020, in February 2020, we got a term sheet for our first funding round, and I was pretty excited. March 15th or 16th, Bitcoin dropped by 40%, Black Thursday, and that investors stopped responding. March 19, I remember in Canada there was lockdowns. So lockdown happened, and then that was like the world was going crazy. The stock market, broader stock market, everyone thought the world was finished, and stock market crashed, everything. And so what I did is I went and put my down payment. I was going to go buy a house. I put my down payment into the company and then floated, and then that gave us like a couple of months of runway. And then I went and I closed big customers. I closed Consensus, and I closed like these big companies and made Covalent profitable. And then it was a V-shaped recovery. So by, I would say, July, things were back to normal, and it was the start of the bull market. And then we closed like a $3 million round in like 3 weeks, right? Because we were also profitable by then. So that was a bet I made on myself and on my team, on my co-founder, and the conviction we had in the space, which could have gone the entire opposite way. Then I would have just be ashamed in front of my wife and said, I lost our down payment and now we have no house, no company, nothing, right? So I would say that was like probably the most degen kind of step I've taken. But I'm not a degen. Like I can't take risks now, right? Because I have a lot of mouths to feed. So now we are no more craziness like that.
And I went over to your LinkedIn before this podcast, and you mentioned that you're an adventurer, and you talk about climbing up to Mount Everest Base Camp, right? So tell me more about that.
I've wanted to do the base camp, EBC as it's affectionately called, for many years. A lot of my friends had done it, and finally I got an opportunity to do it in 2018. And a couple of things came into light there. One is that I was getting kind of like disillusioned with Covalent because this is my 4th startup, and other startups within I would say 4 or 5 months, you get prepayments. You get customers who are willing to pay for your product, and you see that product market fit even before you. I think I would recommend, if you're especially in the B2B space, go sell your product even before it's built, right? Get like LOIs or something. We got nothing. So a year in, we had no customers, no revenue. We had like some like early product. I was getting a little disillusioned. I was like, should I give up or not? And then some of my mentors said you should go, take some time off. So I took a month off to do Everest. So I trained for it for about 6 months, and then went out to Nepal. And then a lot of things went wrong on that trip, which is very unfortunate. So first thing is that when we were flying from Hong Kong to Nepal to Kathmandu, there was like some accident in Kathmandu. So they diverted the flight to Dhaka, which is in Bangladesh. And we had no visas, we had nothing. And, Bangladesh is a very conservative Muslim country. So, they had to give like hijabs to all the women. And then we should have landed in Kathmandu at 8 p.m. We landed in Dhaka in Bangladesh after all the processing at 4 a.m. And then we had to catch the next connecting flight. So that was like quite the adventure, pre-adventure, I would say. But then once we started hiking, it was incredible. I think a lot of things. I was mostly by myself. So even though we were doing a tour guide, as a group, and my wife was with me, we were not. It's everyone looks so small, right? Because even if someone is just like 5 minutes away, you can't see them because the mountains are just towering in front of you. So I was basically hiking by myself, and then I don't know if it's like something like mentally changed in me or it was a lack of oxygen. I don't know, but I kind of felt like I had existential questions coming up in my mind. Ooh. Like these mountains have been here for like thousands of years, right? Before I've been, and they will be here for thousands of years after I'm gone. So I'm just like a speck of dust in their life cycle. So why all this stuff? Why does it matter? Like what's the point of all of this stuff? I think it's the oxygen. I don't know what it is, right? So, but it was a little crazy. And then, but I got lots of ideas about Covalent stuff. So funny is like I was thinking about Covalent on that trip too, right? Because I didn't know what to do. And then, but that was the most beautiful trek I've ever done in my life. But what happened after the trek is I burnt out. So it's a weird kind of burnout in the sense that most people burn out from work or from school, right? And they can't study, they can't focus at work, and their mind becomes mush. For me, I burnt out from any kind of like external stimuli or like social activities or just like going out. And that was perfect for Covalent because for the next, I would say probably 7 or 8 months, I grinded basically 8 to 10 hours every day, 7 days a week. And because I didn't want to go anywhere, I didn't take any Christmas vacation or anything. And all I wanted to do is work. And so I came up with lots of like exciting like ideas to grow Covalent. That's when we started closing like, these early stage projects. Because we had all the blockchain data, I was like doing the queries on the blockchain data to see what the traction was, and then do outreach for those contracts that were having traction. So stuff like that, right? Overall, I would say I would highly recommend doing a big trek like this. It really pushes and really tests yourself. It tests your commitment. The Everest, the summit itself is very expensive. It also takes 3 months of prep work, and you really have to be committed. And it's very expensive. It's like over $100,000 because of insurance and stuff like that. And it takes 3 months because you have to look for the right weather. And the chance of death is pretty high. I'm not that crazy, so I don't think I'll ever do the summit. But there are some people who do that. It's their life's work. I recommend doing Kilimanjaro or or one of the peaks. There are lots of base camps in the Himalayas. Kilimanjaro is in Africa, in Tanzania. That's pretty cool. There's Mount Fuji. So I would recommend people do some kind of like commitment outside of startups and all that stuff that really tests yourself. I think you'll surprise yourself. You'll definitely surprise yourself because you can push yourself a lot harder than you think what you're capable of. Also, you're stuck on a mountain. There's no way to go, so you have to keep going, right? So I would say try exploring that path. I think it'll surprise you. And then the startups and all that will just too easy, right?
Yeah, I mean, in a way, it tests your resolve, right? And then you carry that over into your startup, into your work life. So in a sense, it's good taking a break, and really happy that it benefited you in the end as well. That's a really inspiring story coming all the way out to Mount Everest Base Camp. Any plans on going back there or to any other mountains?
It's tempting. So I have flights booked to Peru to do Machu Picchu. My second time, actually. I did it about 10 years ago. So that's a 3-day trek to Machu Picchu. I don't know if I'm going to do it this year because the market is so hot. Like there's so much work to do for Covalent. So I might not do. I can't take the risk of another burnout, and it'll be like another 6 months of grind. It's too much. But I definitely want to try something. Maybe when things are not so crazy. Maybe in a couple of years.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And speaking of traveling, not sure if you heard of Token 2049. It's a pretty big event here happening in Singapore. All the big guys are coming over, crypto event. So any plans on coming for the event here?
It's an unfortunate timing. So Token 2049 was supposed to be in May of this year, and then it got rescheduled. And I just finished a big bout of travel. So I was in Korea Blockchain Week last week, and I was in India and Dubai and New York for Eat New York and Austin and Miami. So I did a lot of travel this year. And going out September is Lisbon for NearCon and Messari in New York. So a lot of travel. Unfortunately, the Asia trip had to be cut out because it's too far for us. But next year for sure. It's a great event. I wish I'd been I was able to make it through.
All right, and I think we've come to the end of the podcast. Thank you so much, Ganesh, for taking your night. I think it's around 12, almost 12, right, in Canada?
9 p.m.
Oh, 9 p.m. Okay, still early, not too late.
We're in the We're in the West Coast, yeah.
Great, and thank you so much for taking your time on this podcast. And we'll see you around. Bye. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thanks so much for the opportunity. Cheers.